Right, good morning everybody. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Megan Twentyman, the BDM for Unified Communications here at Soft Solutions. Thanks for joining us this morning. On the call with me, I've got Kiran Kumar, who is our technical specialist.
Hello everyone.
And the purpose of today's webinar is to look at some license changes and name convention changes that are happening, and also recap update 8, which is at release candidate. So it's not quite live, but it's almost there. We'll try and keep this to our bite-sized format, and obviously there will be questions at the end. If you have questions as we go along, feel free to pop those in and we will answer those when we get to the end of the webinar. So the agenda for today is to look at the licensing changes. We'll recap update 8. Kiran's going to take you inside update 8 of one of our demo test systems. We'll also look at the roadmap and just recap any other announcements that have happened recently. And then, as I said, we will wrap up with a Q&A. So licensing changes, what is changing? Quite a lot. So we've all become familiar with the name Startup since about May last year when it was first announced. 3CX have renamed Startup, so Startup is no more. However, Startup Free becomes 3CX Free. Still, they up to 10 users, 1 SIP trunk, 1 ring group, maximum of 3 IP phones. And if you've only got 1 SIP trunk, it's 1 external call and 9 internal people can be on a phone call as well. So there are limitations with that 3CX Free, but a great entry level solution. The Startup Pro 10 or 20 user is now known as 3CX SMB 10 or 20. More functionality, not as many restrictions, i.e. there's no restrictions on how many IP phones you can have, etc. But there are still restrictions with that, very much for those very small entry businesses. So they are designed to make life simple for very small organisations that can't quite get up to, say, a dedicated instance. One of the key things with what was Startup is now 3CX Free and SMB is you must use an interop SIP provider, but it cannot just be any interop SIP provider. So not all SIP interop providers can offer these solutions. So it's really important that you check who can offer that in New Zealand. And I am delighted to be able to advise that Ufone now have SIP for the 3CX Free and 3CX SMB available here in New Zealand. Ufone, for anybody that's not familiar, were the first SIP provider in New Zealand to interop with 3CX, which was many years ago, before I was even the brand manager. If these solutions meet your customer needs and you don't have an existing relationship with Ufone around SIP, please reach out. I'm happy to do an introduction to Nigel and Tina and the team and help you to build that relationship as well. Obviously, because Ufone were also the first SIP provider in New Zealand to complete interop, they have SIP services available for the dedicated licenses as well. Now, 3CX Free. This is unfortunately going to cause a little bit of confusion, and we've already had some questions around this. So there is a difference between the new 3CX Free, which is the old Startup Free. It's a per user license and all those restrictions that we just talked about. This is different to the older free or standard for simultaneous call licenses. So those had to be created by the close of business, 31st of December 2022. And if they're all registered correctly, they will currently be showing an expiry date of the 31st of December 2023, and they will extend out until December 2024. But for all new licenses created, if you're wanting a free one, it must be the 3CX Free or the old Startup Free. And that is the one that's going to be used. Now, it does get a little bit confusing. There are some ways to work through what's what, and we can help you with that. If you need help, just reach out to myself, and I'll be happy to walk you through that. So there is a difference between a for simultaneous call free license and the 3CX Free or Startup Free that people have had, which is up to 10 users. So I know it's a bit confusing with those naming conventions, but bear with us. Next announcement in terms of licensing, you should have received an email from 3CX late last week that they are ending license renewals on perpetual licenses. So we haven't actually been able to buy perpetual licenses for quite some years, but we have been able to renew them. The cost of renewing a perpetual and an annual subscription is exactly the same. So there is no price differential. However, what 3CX have announced is that they will no longer renew those perpetual licenses. They will convert them to an annual subscription 2 months prior to expiry, and then they can just be renewed as an annual subscription. However, if a customer, for whatever reason, really wants to stay on a perpetual license with no maintenance, so not paying their annual maintenance, and knowing that their system will eventually go offline and become unsupported, they will lose access to things like the 3CX apps, the 3CX meeting or their video conferencing solution, the SMTP server, product updates. If they really want to stay on perpetual, and I would question why anybody would, there is a way to have it reversed from the trade-in that they're doing to the annual subscription on your behalf. Just reach out and I can walk you through that. But obviously, we would highly recommend people to be converting over to the annual subscriptions anyway, so that they can get up to date. What 3CX have announced is that from version 20, which will be the next big major release from 3CX, the perpetual license keys will not be able to be used with version 20. So there will be no upgrade path for any perpetual licenses. And on the good news front, across ANZ, there is actually a very small proportion of perpetual licenses left, not like other parts of the globe that are really struggling with huge numbers of perpetual licenses. Annual subscriptions are what most people are used to today, and I don't foresee it being a major issue because people have been renewing and keeping those licenses current anyway. So if you have any questions about that, please do reach out. So just to recap the licenses and the products that are available, because it gets quite confusing and we've had quite a period of change. So there are 4 key products from 3CX. 3CX Free, which is up to 10 users. It is your license and your hosting all in one. Limitations of 1 SIP trunk, 1 ring group, and 3 IP phones. So that has limitations around it. 3CX SMB, there are 2 options, one for 10 users, one for 20 users. Again, it's your license and your hosting all in one. If you have 12 users, then you need 3CX SMB 20. If you have 9 users then or 10, you only need the 3CX SMB 10. So it's a per user, but there's just 2 blocks of users. And then we come to what we would reference as the more traditional licenses, the dedicated licenses. So we have the 3CX Pro and the 3CX Enterprise. These are based on the simultaneous call count model, and what most of our partners are very familiar with, and in fact actually makes up over 95% of 3CX's business globally. So those are the ones you're all familiar with. Key things around SIP for the free and the SMB, it is only specific interop providers who can offer those options. So for us in New Zealand, that would be Ufone. For the Pro and the Enterprise licenses, an interop provider is highly encouraged. In fact, 3CX won't support non-interop provider SIP services into a 3CX instance, but you can BYO. So there are a number of SIP providers for New Zealand that have done interop, and then there are others that you may choose to use. There's also the hosted by 3CX for dedicated instances. So this is highly encouraged. It has been highly encouraged for users of 4 simultaneous call up to 32 simultaneous call. Now actually goes all the way up to a 256 simultaneous call license, and that is hosting on Volta out of Australia, so Sydney and Melbourne data centres, and everything is managed by 3CX to keep it all nice and clean and tidy. So I know there's quite a lot of changes there. If you have any questions, we'll address those at the end. And if you think of something after the webinar, you can reach out to me. So just recapping on Update 8, because last month's webinar centred on Update 8, we're now at release candidates. So we've been through the alpha and the beta, and we're just waiting for that to go live. It shouldn't be too far away now. So just a really quick recap on some of the major changes in Update 8. There is an updated Microsoft 365 API being used, which is offering better reliability, security. It's more two-way communication, so that it's going to make adding contacts and that type of thing much easier. They're also bringing out a Windows soft phone, which will live in the Microsoft Store. So it'll be like the apps, but it will be sitting in the Microsoft Store. If you're using current Microsoft 365 integration, you will need to provision. It's under 5 minutes. It's just a couple of minutes to do that. And that will be when Update 8 goes live. As I mentioned, managing contacts is getting a lot simpler. And the other key thing is SharePoint for storing backups and recordings. So that's a really nice layer there as well. More on the integrations. For those of you that are familiar with Tappy, it was and still is in the legacy Softfoam app, but it is being brought into the new version of the desktop app, which is in beta, and it will go live at the same time that Update 8 goes live. So if you have a need for those Dativ or other apps, Tappy will be in the desktop app from Update 8 onwards. Headsets. Update 6, we introduced the universal driver plus Yealink remained. In Update 7, Jabra returned to the list, and in Update 8, you'll see Polyplantronics returning to that list as well, because they've made some back-end changes to their MSI certificates, etc., that will enable that better integration. The other key thing in Update 8 is around CRM server-side integrations. So a complete revamp of the codes, ability to add context to the CRM. So instead of just being a one-way, it's now a two-way communication, and the ability to be able to search the CRM contacts as well. We know coming in Update 9 or 10 that there'll be a call recording link into the CRM journal and a transcription of the call. Plus the ability to support multiple CRMs per PBX. So the other key thing is that the WebClient admin is being renamed to the admin console. So that is occurring from Update 8. This is part of that migration from the management console to what's now called the admin console. So it's a bit of naming convention. One of the key things moving across is the license information and the reporting. And Kiran's actually going to take us inside that to have a look at what that looks like in the admin console of an Update 8 instance. So just give me a second to hand controls over to Kiran so that she can present her screen, and then she will be able to, she should be getting the controls now, she'll be able to present her screen, and I'll let Kiran walk you through this.
So thanks, Megan. Hello, everyone. Now I'll just quickly take you through and a walkthrough of the admin console. As you can see here, we are in the admin console. When you just go to the admin panel, what you can see is the licensing details. As you can see, we have got the license type, the enterprise annual license, the size, 4 simultaneous calls, and also the partner details. Here the partners can see their license key details, emails, and also their current 3CX version. Here you can have a look at the event log, which gives you a detailed description of what's happening in the 3CX system. Now, when I just click the edit button, what I can see is that it gives me an option to modify my license. For those of you trying to convert your perpetual license to an annual subscription, it's now way more easier that you can do it from the admin panel. And I've got a lot of questions like about how to change the owner rights and do everything. So now you can see you can change the owner license from the admin console as well. Moving on, the reports tab, as Megan said, with update 8, the reports tab has been moved from the management console to the admin panel. We can see it here. The call logs gives you a detailed description on the caller ID, the description, and everything. Also, call reports gives you an option to filter the call from, to, and the users. Getting back, it also shows you the options to configure your ring group statistics, call queues, and agent statistics. So hopefully that's clear. If you have any questions, please do ask us in the Q&A session. I'll be really happy to answer it. So I'm now going to pass it to Megan.
Awesome, thanks Kiran. So Kiran's just going to hand back the controls so that I can present my screen again. But if you have any questions on the reporting, we do have this demo system set up. We haven't done a lot of calls in there, but what they've done is they've consolidated a lot of those reports. So hopefully my screen is presenting again, fantastic. So just moving on with update 8 and more information around what has changed there. There was a lot of changes around provisioning. So in update 6, the RPS provisioning was completely rewritten. Now in update 8, they're allowing RPS provisioning for on-prem installs with local IP phones. You will require split DNS, and split DNS is an absolute requirement of 3CX moving forward. Manual config and DHCP option 66 is still available, and legacy phones are still supported, but it's really to accommodate migrations, not as a long-term strategy. You really want people on more up-to-date technologies. So that's definitely something to consider when you're migrating. Other enhancements, and some that are really capturing attention, the addition of H.264 video codec. That's been enabled in the 3CX apps to allow for easy access for video door feeds and that type of thing. So that's something that's been asked for a long time. It was a licensing thing, and that's now been resolved. Live chat, group hours will be taken into consideration for outside office hours and breaks and that kind of stuff. So you can have different groups working on the live chat and having different office hours. So that's another kind of key feature, that when those new user options came in update 6, we can now define those groups and allow them to sort of operate within one instance. Other things that we know are on the roadmap for updates 9 and 10 and version 20. So we know that after update 8 goes live, we're expecting 2 more updates before version 20. So single sign-on, 2-factor authentication, Debian 12 support. So Debian 12 was just released in June this year, so that will have support for Debian 12 in, I believe that'll be version 20. In terms of CRM, I mentioned earlier the ability to have a call recording link journaled into the CRM, transcription. You'll also be able to have multiple CRMs supported per PBX. So that will be one per group. So you can have your sales team using, say, Salesforce and somebody else using Zoho, whatever they're using. So you can have multiple CRM systems linked up. We know that at version 20, perpetual licenses will not be a thing anymore. So they will not be able to use, they will not upgrade. So, you know, that's part of these changes that are happening now, well in advance. Other recent news, during June, we had the new iOS and Android apps released, which was all about better call handling and being able to multitask, which I love. In July, we've now got betas of both the iOS and Android apps. They're adding H.264 codecs to answer video door entry systems from the apps, the CRM searching capabilities, so that's really good stuff as well. There's been some changes around live chat and WordPress plugins, so there's some updates on that. There's been some Debian security updates applied, which are valid for update 7 and update 8, and those will be applied automatically. There is a full blog on that if you need more information. In terms of the technical certifications, the word I got late on Friday is that the new exams are imminent. So they're either going to be loaded up today or it'll be a couple of weeks, because Cyprus are about to have their main summer holiday. It's the school holidays in Europe at the moment. So a lot of non-critical staff will be going on holiday. Be assured that our ANZ team are working through the next 2 weeks. So everything is just business as usual for the ANZ region. But for a quick recap, we had 3 certifications. We're going down to 2. Everybody needs to recertify, and we will be starting to roll out technical trainings both in person and online. Kiran is busily studying up on all the new slide decks that we have received. things are changing. We've actually are on our third lot of slide decks already, so it's all changing quite quickly. But as soon as those exams are ready, we will start rolling that out around the country. Other key things is just remember to stay up to date with what's happening. There is a lot happening in the UC space, particularly with 3CX, but also with all our hardware products. So we wrap those up in the channel update newsletter that went out last week. If you have not received that, please reach out to us and we'll make sure you're added to receive that newsletter moving forward. Our weekly newsletter, keep an eye on the events section or the events section of our website if you haven't discovered that yet. That's where we'll post things like webinars, but we always send out invites anyway. The UC community group on LinkedIn is where I post everything first that is happening and changing, so do not hesitate to jump on that as well. There's links from within the newsletter, or if you need help to be added to that, just reach out and we will assist you with that. And that brings us to the end of today's slightly longer than normal bite-sized webinar as she checks the time. But thank you for your attendance. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to throw those into the question box and I will try and answer those as quickly as possible. Okay, so with 3CX SMB, is it easy enough to go between 10 and 20 licenses? You can increase, but you cannot decrease easily. So if you start with a 10 and you add an 11th person, then you would need to upgrade to the SMB 20 to get access for that additional person. And that will be your license moving forward. If you go down to 10 users at point of renewal, then we can do a bit of fiddling to get that license downsized, but downsizing is never as easy as upsizing, of course. So if you have any issues around that, you just reach out to us and we'll assist with that. Split DNS, Mark, it's very technical. You're asking the non-technical person to explain about DNS. Let me have Anoop give you a call and walk you through what is required. There is going to be more information coming from 3CX. There's been mention of split DNS for quite some time now, and it's just a security functionality. Yeah, I'll get Anoop to give you a buzz on that one. Okay, Jono, yes. There is. We just got that through late on Thursday. I will drop that in an email to you. So we do have some templates for non-interop hardware. They are written by the manufacturer. So in this case, it's a Grandstream one. I will send that through to you. But obviously, interop solutions are what 3CX will always recommend. But happy to help you on that one, which is good news. Not sure if there's any more questions coming in. Give everybody a few more seconds. I'll update you via email on that, Jono. Okay, doesn't look like we've got any more questions. Kiran, you've been let off the hook. No questions for you today. But don't worry, if you have any questions, just reach out to us on uc@softsoul.co.nz and we'll be happy to help you, either myself, Kiran, or Anoop. We'll be happy to assist with that. If anything's unclear, this recording will be sent out tomorrow for you, and otherwise just reach out via email. But apart from that, thank you everybody for your time today. We really do appreciate you taking your time, and we will talk to you next month with what the latest updates are happening there. Thanks everyone.